My name is James and today we're talking about 10 must-have games for the Sega Dreamcast. While Street Fighter III Third Strike is easily the superior fighter, I've given the beat-em-up slot to Soul Calibur because Namco went above and beyond with its conversion of the arcade title. Now in 2016 it's hard to get across how much of an impact this game made. Sure, you had your Tekkens and Bloody Roars, but there was nothing that looked like Soul Calibur when it hit in 1999. The game showcased what Sega's little box of dreams was capable of, and unlike Capcom's Third Strike, Soul Calibur offers all the amazing playability and gameplay of the arcade original, but enhances it by delivering new modes such as Team Battle, Survival and a training mode that all help the game's replayability. One of the more robust modes featured in the game has to be its mission mode, which would see the player complete various objectives to attain points which could then be used to purchase art and costumes for your characters. Soul Calibur upped the ante on the Dreamcast and is one of the prime examples of an arcade conversion done right. Developed by the same guys who created everyone's favourite hedgehog and released in 2000, it became a common experience falling asleep at your keyboard in Phantasy Star Online. Not because it was boring, but because it was so damn addictive. Never mind that level grinding was a chore or that phone bills could run into 3-digit numbers, Sonic Team had created a world that was so imaginative you just couldn't stay away. You get to choose one of 3 classes, Hunter, Ranger or Force. Hunters are best at wielding close range weapons such as swords, Rangers attack from a distance using guns, whereas Forces are the magic class of the game and can develop a variety of techniques. To this day the game can be enjoyed offline, where you can explore the different levels that take place over 4 distinct areas. Incredibly basic when compared with recent MMOs, it's easy to forget what impact it made upon its release, and just how successfully Sonic Team had evolved the franchise from its RPG roots. Capcom's 4th Resident Evil title caused quite a stir upon release in 2000, mainly because it was the first time the franchise didn't debut on a Sony console, but also because it was the first game in the series to use proper 3D backgrounds, instead of the traditional pre-rendered ones we were used to. Taking place 3 months after the events of Nemesis, the game will go on to continue Claire's search for her brother Chris. Leaving behind the urban surroundings of Raccoon City, Code Veronica saw Claire travelling to a remote island, as well as a research facility in the Antarctic. The gameplay is almost identical to the original Resident Evil and returns to the series' staple tank controls, which at this point was becoming a bit of a sore topic within the fanbase of the series, but it was saved thanks to far more impactful cutscenes and a shockingly good storyline. Although the game does not include a number within its release, the developers have said they regard Code Veronica as the true sequel to Resident Evil 2. I absolutely love Skies of Arcadia. The score is sweeping and magnificent, the world you explore is incredibly huge and full of mystery. Add to this the fact that each and every character you meet is larger than life in a way that only the best role-playing games can manage, and you have yourself a beautifully immersive title. Developed by Overworks and released in 2000, Skies of Arcadia would go on to become one of the most critically acclaimed RPGs for the system. Despite this, the game did not sell that well, prompting a re-release for the GameCube a couple of years later, but in my eyes the Dreamcast version is the best. The game depicts the escapades of a young air pirate called Whis and introduces a wondrous adventure that's set in a Jules Verne inspired world where islands float in the sky and flying ships are the main form of travel. While Skies of Arcadia follows the well-trodden path of many other games in the genre, it has been put together with so much passion that you can't help falling in love with it. Jet Set Radio sums up Sega during the period of the Dreamcast. Insane, quirky, and not afraid to try new things. In my opinion, these are the qualities that have always made me fond of the company, and with the Dreamcast they truly were at their best. Released in 2000, Jet Set Radio would see you taken to the streets, tagging up the areas as you boost and grind about on rollerblades. You take control of Beat, who forms a gang called the GGs, and are tasked with taking down a sinister organization, the Rokaku. Each stage will see you spraying different spots within the area before the timer runs out, all the while evading the enemy, who goes as far to use fucking tanks and helicopters to try and take you down. The gameplay is tight and at its best when making use of the various obstacles such as rails and ramps scattered around the areas. The only complaint I have with the game is with its camera, which can become a bit wonky at times, but apart from that it's batshit crazy and one hell of a laugh to play. After a disappointing presence on the Sega Saturn, Sonic needed to prove that he was still able to stand up to the likes of Mario and successfully make the transition into a fully 3D adventure. Appearing as a launch title for the Dreamcast, Sonic Adventure was a completely different experience than what we were used to. The game would see you take control of up to 4 characters as you tackle the various objectives within the field, as well as action stages that become available depending on your progress. As with many franchises that made the switch to 3D, there were a few drawbacks, and Sonic Adventure is no exception. The camera is the main issue here that can really detract from the on-screen action, but the game more than makes up for it in the form of the surprising amount of variety present within the game. Sure, it's an adventure title, but you'll also find yourself racing around in karts, speeding downhill on snowboards, taking part in some pinball, and even looking after some cute little creatures through the Dreamcast VMU. Sonic Adventure truly is a must-have. The amount of work that went into the game is clearly evident and totally deserves a place in your library. There's a ton of great shoot-em-ups for the Sega Dreamcast, but not one of them comes close to the sheer quality of Treasure Ikaruga. Originally released in arcades, the game expanded on the duality themes that Treasure explored with Silhouette Mirage by having your ship switch between 2 different polarities. While you could absorb shots that were the same color as your ship, enemies succumbed quicker to opposing colored fire, which resulted in one hell of a risk and reward system. It's pretty evident that much of the game's challenge centers around mastering this mechanic, and with some of the bosses in the game, it's a good idea to do so, as it can get increasingly difficult with the amount of action happening on screen. What makes this game even greater is the inclusion of a 2-player mode that will see you taking on the campaign with a buddy at your side, as well as an interesting feature that was also included that allows the user to switch the display and turn their screen on its side to fully emulate the arcade experience. If you love your shoot-em-ups, this is the one to get. Okay, the frame rate on the PS2 release is way better, and you can now actually play it on the PS4, which has to be the ultimate version of this game, but there is no denying that res on the Sega Dreamcast remains to this day an utterly beautiful experience. The game is set in a futuristic computer called Project K. As you take the role of a hacker who is tasked with rebooting the computer's AI known as Eden. Consisting of 5 areas, the first 4 are divided into 10 levels, each with a boss waiting at the end, with the final area sees you encountering various of the bosses from the first 4. Essentially an on-rail shooter, Res pushes the boundaries and mixes gameplay, sound and visuals in a way that few other titles have managed to do. Beautifully crafted and including the sort of creative gameplay that matches its striking visuals, Res is just as much as an experience as it is a game, and is further testament to just how creative and quirky Sega once was. Truly a stunning game that needs to be in every Dreamcast owner's collection. Developed by Bizarre Creations and released in 2000, Metropolis Street Racer would go on to lay the foundations for the Project Gotham series. Part simulator, part arcade racer, MSR delivered a driving experience that few other games of the time could match. As with all driving games, the most important characteristic is the handling, and MSR struck the balance between simulation and arcade just right. But what really makes the game stand out has to be the inclusion of the kudos system, which would see you getting rewarded for racing with style and completing objectives on time. Centered around the single-player mode, you take part in challenges that include one of several modes, such as one-on-one, championship, and street races. One of the surprising things not included in the game is a replay mode that was removed from all of the retail versions of the game due to time constraints. Although it feels weird for this feature to be missing, it's not a deal breaker and does not detract from one of the finest driving experiences for the system. If you've been watching the show for some time, you should be aware of my love for the Shenmue series. Absolutely huge in scope and with an incredibly complex narrative, the Shenmue franchise delivered an experience that no other game at the time was able to match. And I know I'm cheating by putting Shenmue 1 and 2 as the #1 spot, but you really cannot talk about 1 without mentioning its incredible sequel that perfectly joined to offer an incredible journey. After all, here was a series that not only allowed you to visit an arcade and play many of Yu Suzuki's past games, such as Hang On, but was even able to make menial tasks like working enjoyable. In 1999, the concept of an open world was not something gamers were used to, but Shenmue introduced us to a living and breathing environment that saw even NPC characters having their own purpose and routine in the world. Following Ryo Hazuki on his quest for revenge, the game is more about growing as a person and offers a truly unique adventure.